These are 10 episodes that show the worst things Stewie Griffin has done. Starting with number 10, the greatest crossover in the show's history, The Simpsons Guy. Thanks to his misogynistic comic strip in the Quahog newspaper, Peter becomes the target of an angry group of women. Clearly having learned nothing from angering Lois over the years, Peter doesn't realize the danger the family is in until their home is attacked, forcing them to flee Quahog. One car trip filled with sexual tension later, and the Griffins pull over for gas before getting their car stolen. They're left with no other option than to head into the city of Springfield. Cue the music! This crossover filled my childhood fantasy and disappointed me all at the same time. So the family walks through Springfield to take in the sights, Krusty Burger, the Town Hall, and the Quickie Mart, where they run into none other than Homer Simpson. Peter and Homie become fast friends over a donut. They're both easy to please, apparently. So Homer takes the family to Chief Wiggum to report the stolen car before inviting the Griffins to meet his family. It's not until they're facing off that you realize just how much one show copied from the other. And I'm not brave enough to add fuel to the fire and say which one did which. So each character meets the other version of themselves, meaning Stewie is introduced to the original troublemaker, Bart Simpson.
Eat my shorts.
Eat my shorts. I love that.
To say that Stewie has found his new idol would be drastically underselling Stewie's love for Bart. The pair bond over their weapons closets and love for pranking people. Simply put, it's a match made in hell. Credit to Bart as he takes Stewie under his wing despite their differences that start to show. For one, Bart Simpson is 10 years old, and while Stewie is ridiculously advanced, he's still only 1. Remember when your parents forced you to take your younger sibling everywhere with you even though they totally weren't cool enough to hang out with your friends? Yeah, that's exactly what this is. But this is where Stewie's love for his new mentor develops into an episode of Dexter. Without any prompting, Stewie decides to kidnap Bart's sworn nemesis and school bully, Nelson. But he doesn't just kidnap Nelson, he makes a full show of it.
Oh, that's a clown I painted, so you know I'm truly insane.
While all of this is happening, Peter's having out with Homer over who creates the best beer, the brewery or Duff. To sum up, Peter and Homer's entire contribution to this episode is donuts and beer. Gripping TV. Their public argument catches the attention of a lawyer who sues Peter as a representative of the brewery for intellectual theft. The judge rules in favor of Duff beer, and the Griffins are forced to leave Springfield and return to Quahog. But the two families don't have teary goodbyes, it's a little more tense, let's say. I'd love to say that Stewie left Bart with a parting gift, but then I'd be lying. He opens the Simpsons garage to reveal the still tied up Nelson along with even more of Bart's known enemies. Jimbo Jones, Principal Skinner, Sideshow Bob, and for the sake of a pun, Apu.
I know Apu's not your enemy, but I just wanted to say I took Apu.
Okay, I'll admit it, I laughed at that. Stewie doesn't see what the issue is with kidnapping 5 different people because why would he? But Bart absolutely does. When Stewie asks how they're going to keep in touch after leaving, Bart tells him that Stewie freaks him out too much to ever be his friend. Stewie's left heartbroken, but it should be a valuable lesson for the baby. If you're too crazy even for Bart Simpson, you might want to reevaluate your life choices. At number 9 is an episode where Stewie discovers a new type of freedom and Stewie goes for a drive. From his very first scene in this episode, Stewie made it clear what side of the bed he woke up on that morning.
You're gonna be ugly when you grow up, and everything in your house is cheap.
He pulls the ultimate 180 and goes from roasting Gavin to channeling his inner James Corden, as he belts out Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats in a parody of Carpool Karaoke. Thinking his voice is good enough, he angrily demands that he should be on Glee and accidentally puts the car into drive mode during his outburst. Of course, his baby knowledge leads him to the conclusion that he can now drive. This is going to end so well. Being the thrill seeker that he is most of the time, Stewie decides to steal Brian's keys and take the dog's car for a joyride. He pulls out the driveway, cranks up the radio, and experiences the freedom of the open road. But his excitement quickly shifts from driving to the radio as they announce a competition to win tickets to a Justin Bieber concert. Woo, so exciting. He calls in for the chance to win, but quickly finds out why using your phone when driving is illegal. He thankfully walks away with minimal injuries, but the same can't be said for the car. When Brian returns home and sees that his car is totaled, he asks Stewie who could have possibly been behind the damage.
Oh my god, that is surprising!
And the Academy Award for Best Actor goes to... Brian sees through Stewie's lies, and it's for sure because he found Rupert in the backseat and not because of the baby's attempts at deception. In one of his more reasonable moments, Brian lets Stewie know that he'll be talking to Lois and Peter about his joyride out of concern for Stewie's safety. Stewie hasn't exactly faced punishment or telling off before, despite the literal hundreds of absolutely insane things he's done. So the fear of his parents finding out has him running away from home. All he leaves is a DVD for Brian, which carefully explains that the dog shouldn't follow him, or chase him down at the airport, or involve a list of songs to play out of a boombox should Brian find him. Stewie really didn't want to be found, huh? So Stewie takes the bus to the airport, except he takes the wrong bus and ends up on a shady side of town. Thankfully, Ms. Lemon Pledge herself, Consuela, is there to take in the lost baby.
Baby all alone in the street. I take baby home.
On second thought, after seeing what Consuela put Stewie through, he probably should have stayed lost. Since he's literally a dog, which, by the way, how do we all keep forgetting about that? Anyway, Brian uses his dog nose and sniffs out Stewie's location. But Consuela is unwilling to let Stewie go because he's now her baby, called Ernesto. When she refuses to let him go, Stewie brings a gun to a quinceañera. Like he hadn't already done enough damage this episode, Stewie rounds it off by shooting his way out of the party and heading back home with Brian.
I did not want to have to do that. They were very nice to me up until then.
So he roasted a kid, stole a car, crashed said car, ran away from home, and shot up a party. What a solid, morally sound episode for Stewie. The Man with Two Brians earns the number 8 spot since it may be the only episode that Stewie has some justification for his actions, as bad as they are. Before I go in on Stewie's actions, I should start with the main cause for all of this, Peter. After watching an episode of Jackass, Peter is inspired to make his own version of the show. Now, this show comes with a warning to not try any of the stunts at home, but Peter knows he's the main character of the show and won't be getting killed off, so he ignores the warning. It goes just about as well as you'd expect. If you expected it to go horribly, Peter launches himself into a tree and nearly drowns both him and Brian, who is trying to rescue him. Joe saves the day, and Peter makes the mistake of returning home to his wife, who rips into him for endangering their dog.
8! That's 56 in human years.
Okay, Lois.
Brian's offended that Lois is focused on his age rather than Peter's stupidity, and as for Peter, well, Lois's comments have left him fearing the worst. Now that Brian's growing age is in his head, Peter starts panicking that Brian could die soon and brings home a new dog. New Brian walks in with a joke that makes the family laugh harder than they have at anything Brian has said over the previous 7 seasons. Peter's actions make Brian feel even worse than he did when Lois roasted his age, but no one notices since they're so occupied with new Brian and his compliments. I'm not exactly the founding father of the Brian Griffin fan club, but even I can admit that this was a douche move from Peter. So new Brian makes his way into the family, waking them up with gentle music, bonding with the kids, and even getting into original Brian's good graces by offering him a stick and some marijuana. Okay, I wasn't gonna take sides in this fight, but I'm with new Brian now. There's only one family member who's not buying into new Brian's act.
He's not just a delightful new friend for the family. He's your replacement.
Brian always knows best, so of course he doesn't believe what Stewie's telling him. But he does try to outdo new Brian by reminding everyone that he's the original dog in the house, showing off his puppy videos, only no one pays him any attention. Brian gets humbled and Stewie gets his I told you so moment. The realization that he's being replaced doesn't fully hit Brian until Peter, ever so subtly, hints as to what his plan is by asking him to hang out for the afternoon.
That'd be great.
Awesome, because I got this new gun.
Here we go.
Ultimately, Brian decides that it's time to move out. I would too if my other choice was getting shot. He moves in with Cleveland, and Stewie tries to make a new best friend in Brian's absence. New Brian's first mistake is not correcting Stewie's pronunciation of Cool Whip. In Stewie's eyes, this is a big deal, but his second mistake is the last one he'll ever make. Stewie goes to tell new Brian exactly what he thinks of him, and spoiler alert, it's nothing good. But in retaliation, new Brian tells Stewie that at least his teddy, Rupert, liked him, and his humping.
My wife's name out your f***ing mouth!
If there's one thing you don't ever do, it's mention Rupert in front of Stewie like that. So Stewie gets his revenge and brutally murders the dog before dragging his body out to the trash. But that's still not enough for the baby. He not only dumps the body, but he also leaves a fake suicide note.
Wow, he must have had some demons.
After watching this episode, I'm pretty sure new Brian isn't the one with the demons. From the opening scene of the episode at number 7, Patriot Games, it was clear that Stewie was going to be out for blood. As Stewie collects the latest sports bets from his cuddly toys, he reminisces about the time he trusted Brian to pack his parachute. Now, my expectation for this cutscene was watching Stewie plummet to the ground having no parachute to rely on, but I never could have guessed what Brian's prank on Stewie was. Okay, Brian wins. He wins everything. One thing about Stewie is he does not forget anything, but for now, he moves on as though this never happened. He tempts Brian into making a bet on what should be a surefire win, a celebrity boxing match between Mike Tyson and Carol Channing. I say surefire because one of these people has won 6 heavyweight championship belts and the other is an 85-year-old actress. Who am I kidding? This is Family Guy. Of course Carol Channing won. So Brian owes $50 to Stewie, but doesn't make any rush to pay it back to him. And this is where Brian's parachute prank comes into play. Stewie gives Brian a gentle warning that he needs to pay him back within 24 hours or there may be consequences. I think Brian momentarily forgot who he was dealing with because he didn't pay him back within the time frame. Stewie corners Brian coming out of the shower and asks him about the money, to which Brian sidesteps the question yet again. Big mistake.
Where's the money? You gonna give me that money?
Jesus Christ, Stewie, it's $50! Rightly so, Brian is now terrified of Stewie and tries to avoid Stewie around the house. It works for all of 7 seconds, but what a peaceful and painless 7 seconds it was. Stewie sees through the disguise and goes for round 2 against Brian. Instead of glass, this time he uses a golf club, much more refined. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's not just a golf club that he uses. He busts Brian's kneecaps with 2 bullets and burns the dog to a crisp using a flamethrower. Again, let me stress, this is all over $50. While all this mess has been going on, Peter's been screwing up his football career by performing a musical number during a game. He gets himself fired from the squad as a result and transferred to an English football team because apparently they exist. On the flight to England, Stewie tries to sweep his intimidation tactics, or to be more accurate, his assassination attempt on Brian under the rug.
I tell you what, you get 1 free revenge shot at me.
Brian agrees to the terms Stewie is offered, but only on the condition that he doesn't have to warn Stewie when that revenge shot is coming. So Stewie is left in a state of paranoia for the rest of the episode, which he 100% deserves. Brian keeps him on his toes by faking him out by going in for the hit. He's so scared that he even attacks himself to try and call it even. Brian's not accepting that as repayment though. It's not until the end of the episode that Brian gets his revenge in an act that neither Stewie nor myself saw coming. Why does this still not feel like enough revenge to call it even based on Stewie's actions the whole episode? At number 6 on the list is the episode The Hand That Rocks the Wheelchair. And before you ask, it's not about Stewie pushing Joe over, but it does involve Stewie getting picked on by a bully at the playground. Obviously, Stewie is prepared for moments like this. Too prepared, some would say. But he assembles his rifle ready to take out the bully only to misfire and hit himself. A rare occurrence for the baby. Brian, who watched this whole exchange go down, tells Stewie that he thinks he's gone soft and lost his edge. And in an even rarer turn of events, Stewie doesn't hit him or cause any harm to him for his comments. But it doesn't mean that he hasn't taken Brian's words to heart. The next time Brian sees Stewie is in his room creating a... Hold on, let me get my notes for this one. A concentrated neural enhancement device designed to boost his evil side. If this list hadn't already made it clear enough, Stewie is evil enough as it is and has no need for an evil booster machine thingy. Nevertheless, he goes ahead with his plan but walks out still unable to land a good insult.
Sometimes you chase helicopters.
Boom, roasted.
So Stewie walks away thinking that his machine hasn't worked, and he's kinda right, but also hugely wrong. His machine hasn't made him more evil, but it has created an evil version of himself. An evil version of an already evil baby? Oh yeah, this is gonna go great. Evil Stewie's first act of violence is aimed at Brian. Guess they aren't so different after all. When the real Stewie walks in, he's completely confused by the scene in front of him. Brian calls him out for being a psychopath, but soon realizes what's going on when the evil Stewie creepily makes his way into the frame. Stewie is proud of his work, not quite understanding just how messed up the other version of him is. He tries to take the clone to run some tests to improve his machine, but, well, he gets a taste of his own medicine. Quite literally. Remember the last segment when Stewie beat up Brian for not having his money? Yeah, well, imagine that scene, but picture it like an episode of The Boys. Evil Stewie beats up regular Stewie, cuts off Brian's tail, and then slices a woman in half before stealing her car and making an escape into the world. Stewie tries to find the evil he's created before it can cause even more damage to the town, but first, he places all the blame on Brian's shoulders for calling him soft. Sure, none of this is your fault, Stewie. As they argue this out, Evil Stewie's taken out famous Quahog residents left and right, namely the Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah? They make it to the park and try to lure Evil Stewie into a trap.
Wherever you are, if you can hear me, I'm completely defenseless right now.
The plan works as the evil version of himself tries to finish Brian off. Wait, not like that. Let me backtrack. He tries to bring Brian to an end. Nope. You know what? He tries to shoot Brian. Okay, there we go. That's what I get for trying to be tactful. Anyways, he tries to shoot Brian, but regular Stewie takes him by surprise before getting locked into an epic battle. It's neck and neck, but Brian eventually gets the upper hand as he reaches for the gun. There's just one issue. With no clothes on, Brian can't tell the difference between the two. To make his choice on which one to shoot, Brian asks them both to look at their feet. I feel like there could have been a different question he could have asked to be sure, but I'll let Brian roll with this plan.
They're just feet. What are they doing down there?
Oh, yep, that's our Stewie all right. Or is it? So supposedly evil Stewie is dead, and hey, only one woman died. That's not too bad, I guess. Let's cheer this list up with some good old holiday cheer and Road to the North Pole at the number 5 spot. Come on, Stewie, you can't mess up Christmas. Surely. The episode opens with a cheerful holiday number listing all of the wishes the Griffins have for the big day, with Stewie's being some yellow cake uranium. I am not even asking what that's going to be used for. Once the number is done, Stewie and Brian go to the mall so the baby can meet Santa, but by the time they get there, the mall Santa's shift is done. Not one to be ignored, Stewie plans a trip to the North Pole so that he can find and kill Santa Claus for what he's done. With nothing else to do around the house, Brian agrees to join him on the trip, but he tries to get away with lying to Stewie by taking him to a Christmas fair rather than the North Pole. Stewie sees through the act and holds Brian at gunpoint, forcing him to take him to the real one. Totally rational response. To say that the journey goes off without a hitch would be a lie. They end up in a car crash, steal a ride on a Canadian snow scooter, and stay overnight in an abandoned cabin before finally walking up to the gates of Santa's workshop. But when they get there, things go from bad to worse as they find out that not only is Santa dying, but all of his elves and reindeer have become mutated, emotionless beings due to inbreeding to keep up with the demand from the growing population. So, happy holidays? Not wanting Santa to die, thinking that Christmas is ruined, Brian and Stewie offer to take his place this year. So they set off to do the most important job of them all, deliver Christmas presents. They gracefully land at the first house and make their way down the chimney. But all their arguing about how to arrange the presents and who will eat the cookies catches the attention of the homeowner.
Yeah, you're Santa Claus. That's why you broke in through the window. I'm calling the cops.
So what does Stewie do? Oh, he just clubs him in the head with the baseball bat that's a gift for the boy in the house, Johnny. No biggie. Oh, I guess except for the fact that while they're trying to hide the body, his daughter comes down the stairs. When her mom joins her, the battered body falls out of the closet. As she tries to run out of the house, Stewie gives her the same treatment as her husband, right in front of her daughter. In Stewie's head, the next logical step is to tie up and gag the crying child while they work on an exit strategy. After they clean up the blood, they remember the other kid in the house that they were delivering presents to, Johnny. Brian goes to check that the kid has slept through the noise, and technically he has, because it's pretty easy to sleep through all the noise when you don't live in the house. As Brian shouts down the stairs to let Stewie know that there's only one kid's bedroom, Stewie asks the young girl if she has a brother.
Well, then who the hell is John? Oh my God, we're in the wrong house.
Nothing like a good old home invasion to see you into Christmas morning. They make their escape as the cops show up, but realize that they've run out of time to deliver presents to each house in Quahog. So they take the dying Santa onto the news to plead with people to reduce their wish list to just one gift a year to reduce the workload and save Santa. In the spirit of the holidays, everyone agrees to the ask, and 1 year later, things are restored at the North Pole. What a heartfelt message. If only they didn't have to go through breaking and entering, killing 2 parents, and holding a kid hostage to get to that message. I said he couldn't mess up Christmas, and I think I stand corrected. Mr. and Mrs. Stewie is the episode taking the number 4 spot for one simple reason. It has a goddamn Oscar winner in it. Stewie meets a kid on the playground who isn't willing to share his toys, like, really not willing. But he quickly gets over being pushed down when an angelic voice questions if he's okay. The angelic voice in question? None other than 2-time Academy Award winner Cate Blanchett. She introduces herself as Penelope and offers to let Stewie play with her toys, which includes taffy with super glue. When she spots the boy who shoves Stewie, she gives him the sweet and watches him choke to death on it.
Don't push.
Stewie has never fallen in love quicker than he has watching what is basically his female counterpart. The two continue to spend more time together, role-playing dolls as a divorced couple, reading books on the Unabomber, and even comparing weapon rooms with each other. You know, just all the normal stuff kids do these days. His love for her only grows when she starts to hint that she may have had something to do with her mom's death. As soon as she admits that she did do it, Stewie shares that he has been dreaming of doing the same to Lois for years. In Stewie's mind, this instant connection means that he and Penelope are soulmates and are meant to be together. Weird, cause I was thinking that they were meant to be in therapy, but sure, tomato tomato. The pair combine their sociopathic brains and start a series of pranks. And I'm not talking about egging a house. Oh no. They start by blowing up the Great Wall of China and bombing the Eiffel Tower, and she even sends a note to Pakistan from India declaring war. I'm starting to think I should probably look into adding a death counter for this video. Stewie's contributions are no better as he pulls a prompt from a hat to destroy Copenhagen with a tidal wave, with the theme being the Roaring 20s.
Roaring 20 tidal waving!
I cannot even do the math on what the death counter is at this point. As any sane person would be, Brian is concerned that Stewie is being led down a dark path by Penelope. What could have possibly given him that idea? He expresses his concerns to Stewie and tells him that he thinks they should stop hanging out together. Unsurprisingly, Stewie refuses and goes to tell Penelope what the dog advised him to do. Her response? Kill Brian. To Stewie's credit, he at least seems somewhat put off by the idea. Honestly, if Kate Blanchett asked me to do something, I'd fold so quickly and sorry, I don't know where that came from. Moving on. Stewie tries to do what Penelope asks of him, but a series of failed attempts later, and he realizes that he can't go through with it. He goes to tell Penelope about his change of heart, something she had already anticipated, as she reveals her plan to do the job herself. Stewie does a good job at initially protecting Brian from what he believes to be poisoned coffee and donuts, but he doesn't realize that Penelope's plan is much more direct. Deliver a bomb to the front door. Well, you can't say she isn't bold. Brian tries to take the lead on this, believing he can handle a 1-year-old, but he's quickly humbled and tags Stewie in to finish the job. The so-called soulmates end up locked in a heated battle featuring all the weapons you could possibly imagine. No one said this was a realistic show, guys. Stewie gains the upper hand and Penelope leaves him with one last message.
What?
In an ultimate boss move, Penelope uses the distraction and gets away. So like, you're saying there's maybe a chance Kate Blanchett could come back to the show? No big deal. I mean, I guess that would be fine. Play it cool, man. Play it cool. Her epic exit leaves Stewie in the chokehold he spent 90% of the episode in.
Beautiful. I'm gonna tell my friends I banged her.
Buckle up for this one, as the number 3 spot goes to Stewie Is Enceinte, which translates to Stewie is pregnant. Good luck, everyone. The episode opens with Stewie trying to convince Brian to go to Whole Foods with him to stock up on food for his new gluten-free diet. Brian has no interest in joining him, can't imagine why, and leaves Stewie to worry that he came across as too desperate. Since the last offer didn't work, Stewie tries to make a more compelling one by saying they can spend time together watching Lois shush Peter as they watch Nashville. I mean, you're getting warmer, Stewie. Still, it's not enough for Brian, who leaves Stewie alone to watch Joe and Bonnie play with their daughter. Seeing this gives Stewie an idea so horrific that I am making it clear again that you need to buckle the hell up.
Babies save relationships.
Not entirely true, but sure, let's go with it. Stewie lures the dog into a fake tea party to discuss them having a baby, but Brian spends the whole date distracted by his phone. So Stewie takes matters into his own hands and builds a fertilization device. Using Brian's hair and saliva, he successfully impregnates himself with the dog's babies. I have got to call my therapist. Stewie goes to tell Brian the good news, and Brian responds like the rest of us. He is traumatized. Brian explains to him how messed up his actions are and pleads with Stewie to have an abortion, but Stewie is having none of it. He will be having their baby. As he starts to show, Stewie goes for his checkup with Dr. Hartman. Saying that watching a pregnant 1-year-old get checked out in intimate areas is disturbing would be the understatement of the century. Dr. Hartman does show concern about how young Raylene looks, but Stewie puts his worries to rest.
But he didn't force himself on me. I wanted it too.
Well, that's the important thing.
Is it? After their doctor's appointment, Stewie and Brian go to shop for clothes for the baby, where the baby bonds with other expectant moms. Okay, I'll ask the question on all of our minds. How is nobody making a bigger deal about this? But they don't stop after baby shopping, as Stewie has also organized a photo shoot for them. Since it's not authentic, it becomes the world's quickest pregnancy when Stewie goes into labor while getting lunch. They rush to the car to get to the hospital, but it's already too late. Stewie is giving birth. I know I've said disturbing like 50 times now, but it's still not enough to describe the birth scene. Horrifying, maybe, or just all of the above. It's gross, but it's hard to tell which is actually worse to look at, the 1-year-old giving birth or the mutated kids they produce as a result of inbreeding and, well, a dog and a baby mixing genes.
I caught 2 of them trying to eat each other, so that's something we need to watch out for.
Cool, no doubt.
Sweet. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse. It's not just the initial appearance of the puppy, babies, things that are messed up, but also most of their physicality. Melting bones, blind, deaf, you name it, they got it. One by one, the dogs start to die off, and Stewie reveals why he had the babies in the first place. Brian opens up and explains that he was only keeping his distance because Stewie was moody and he thought he wanted space. The pair have a sweet heart-to-heart amidst the chaos of this entire episode, and decide decide to give up their kids to an animal shelter. Just a general word of advice. If you ever feel like your friend is pulling away from you, maybe just, I don't know, talk to them before jumping to this being the solution. I know it's hard to imagine that anything will top that last episode, but unfortunately, Stewie's actions in 8 Simple Rules for Buying My Teenage Daughter absolutely do. Meg is given what should be an easy task of babysitting Stewie for the night while Peter and Lois go out for dinner. They're only gone for a few hours, but that's more than enough time for Stewie to cause carnage. Aside from mutating himself with Rupert by accident, he also proves to be everyone's little brother and how he annoys Meg with 1,001 questions. By the time the night is over, Meg tells her parents that she's never babysitting again because she could be spending her Saturday night with friends.
Meg, if you don't want to babysit anymore, that's fine, but don't you stand there and lie to me.
Firstly, that's hilarious. Secondly, where's the lie? Lois gets to work on hiring a professional nanny now that Meg is no longer interested, but the interview process doesn't get off to a great start. Her choices of babysitter range from non-English speakers to Gloop from the Herculoids, so not exactly much choice there. Just when it seems all hope is lost, in she walks. LaDawn, the woman of Stewie's dreams. Knowing he's got to put on his best moves to stand a chance with a woman like LaDawn, Stewie starts to show off his assets in the bathroom mirror. Stewie is packing a baby powder bottle, but hey, how's LaDawn gonna know that? He flirts with her over a game of Jenga and thinks that he's managing to get somewhere before a huge wrench is thrown into his plans. Enter Jeremy, LaDawn's boyfriend, or as Stewie calls him,
Some frat boy bastard with his damn Tiva sandals and his skull bandits!
When he walks downstairs to find them kissing, Jeremy becomes Stewie's public enemy number 1. He sets out to eliminate Jeremy, quite literally, by breaking into his parents' house and freaking him out through a series of creepy tricks before brutally knocking him out. He ties him up and leaves him in the trunk of a car, but that isn't the worst part. He leaves Jeremy with an iPod that only has the Strokes music on. How could you, Stewie? Stewie continues with his plan of winning over LaDawn by offering her some comfort as she cries about not hearing from her boyfriend. But she puts a stop to the comfort when he tries to grope her. Since she's set more than reasonable boundaries, Stewie decides that he's going to get her fired. Do you think anyone has ever told him that his reaction to things are ever so slightly over the top? He truly is a little evil genius as he poison darts her in the neck, gets a touch of her breast, and then frames her in a mess of a scene.
It was all her friends. They were doing marijuana and heroin.
0 for 2 on the pronunciation, Stewie. Lois wastes no time in firing LaDawn given what she's walked into. Before she walks out of their lives for good, she leaves Stewie with a mixtape she made for him. And it's only at this point that he realizes he's made a mistake. Not the kidnapping or poison dart, no, only after the mixtape. The episode wraps up with Stewie and Meg in the same place they started, babysitting duty on a Saturday night. And it's only then that Stewie remembers he had left Jeremy in the trunk of the car. Hopefully it's not been too long and he's totally fine. Right?
2 weeks. Yep, he's dead.
And earning the top spot on this list, an episode known even by those who don't watch Family Guy, Stewie kills Lois. The title alone is enough to tell you what happens in this episode, but let me take you back to the start. Stewie's relationship with Lois has always been dicey, let's say. Stewie's not exactly his mom's biggest fan, I guess you could say, given he's tried to kill her multiple times. And his big problem with her starts at her birthday dinner where Brian gifts her 2 tickets for a cruise. Lois obviously invites Peter to take the second ticket and join her, but both Brian and Stewie believe that they are going to be the +1.
An hour from now, I'll be surrounded by seamen.
Oh, Stewie. That's not... You know what? Give him a few years. He'll work that one out. So Stewie does what he always does and reacts irrationally. He carts along a truck filled with torture devices that he plans to use on Lois. Brian listens to what Stewie plans to do to Lois and even eggs him on at times, given that Stewie's description of the torture leans a bit more to the kinky side of pain.
And then I'm gonna gag her with her own underwear.
Another lesson for the later years, Stewie. By the end of his torture plan, Brian calls Stewie out for never following through on his plans to kill her. Stewie admits that Brian is telling the truth, which only fuels the already raging fire in him. So Stewie decides it's finally time to be the evil mastermind that he's always claiming to be. He takes a speedboat to catch up to the cruise ship where he finds his mom on board. She's surprised to see him standing there, but even more surprised when Stewie pulls a gun on her. What Stewie does next is the unthinkable. Even with all the years I've spent watching this show, and it's a lot of years, my jaw still hit the ground seeing him go through with this for the first time. 20 bullets later, and there's no denying that Lois Griffin is dead. At first, the family just believes that she's missing, but after a 6-day search, Joe reveals that the police force is declaring her dead. Fast forward a year later, and the family are all coping with the loss in different ways. Peter is struggling to date again, Chris is tricked into thinking Lois is still alive, and Stewie, well, life has honestly never been better for the baby. It's going so well that he feels bold enough to cockily hint to Brian that he murdered Lois.
I'm all talk. I wouldn't possibly go through with it.
For one, I'm going to need the number of his chiropractor if he's getting that range of movement. By the by, Brian threatens Stewie with the promise of finding enough evidence to prove he was on the ship that night. Unfortunately for Brian, Stewie has a pretty solid alibi of being at the carnival with Rupert. Knowing that Brian is onto him, Stewie disposes of all the mementos he kept from her murder, but this only causes issues for Peter. When his friends suspect that Peter killed Lois to get her insurance money, they go around to the Griffin home to find a gun and images of a dead Lois left by Stewie in the trash. After questioning from Joe, Peter is taken to trial where the evidence all points towards him. Just as he's sentenced to first-degree murder, would you believe it, Lois walks in, risen from the dead.
It was Stewie!
Now, to save you from going through another entire episode, part 2 goes through the same thing, only this time Lois tries to kill Stewie so he doesn't take over the world, blah blah blah, and we get to the ending to find out that all this was just a simulation. A real, and it was all a dream moment. Wonder what 5th grader wrote that ending. So Stewie didn't technically kill Lois, but he also sorta did just in a simulation, so still bad?